The Tao of Self-Confidence, Episode 80. Welcome to the Tao of Self-Confidence, where I share stories of real women producing extraordinary results by finding their inner journey to self-confidence 5 days a week. Get your free audiobook at our website at thetaoofselfconfidence.com. Well, hello friend, welcome to the Tao of Self-Confidence, where I share stories of amazing women who have discovered their inner journey to self-confidence. I'm your host today, Sheena Yap Chan, and today's guest, I have a special lady on today. She is a blogger and also an entrepreneur, and she's going to share her story with us on self-confidence, and I just can't wait to bring her out. Her name is Cindy Lin, and Cindy, welcome to the show. Maybe you can fill in a little bit more about yourself to the listeners.
Sure. Hi. Thanks for having me on the show. So my name is Cindy Lin. I have been a home stager for the past 10 years. And in the last few years, I also start styling, doing smaller projects like weddings and stuff like that. I'm also visual merchandising for big brands. That's pretty much what I am. I'm originally born and raised in Taiwan. And I'm actually going to take probably a 9-month sabbatical next year. I always joke that by the time I turn 35, if I'm not married, I'm going to go to art school in Europe. So that's what I'm doing next year. And also just to study a little bit more about styling, because I am interested in other discipline as well. So that's pretty much who I am.
That's pretty cool, taking a sabbatical. I mean, most people wouldn't do that, right? Especially, Asian women. It's not typical.
No, it's definitely not typical at all. I guess that's what's interesting about me. I don't really think about, I still think about what other people think of me, but I really do think that life is very, very short. And if you don't take advantage of it, if you don't take advantage of the now, you would never move forward in your life. And I really don't want to leave this earth with regrets. Basically, if I'm on my deathbed, I don't want to be like, what if I've done this, I've gone and I've challenged myself and stuff like that. So it's really important for me. It's also a scary step to take. It sounds very amazing to move to London for 6 months and then travel the world after that, but it's also very scary. I'm basically leaving a lot of things I'm familiar with behind. I'm going to be on my own for a good chunk of time, traveling by myself. So it definitely is scary, for sure.
Scary can also be a good thing. I mean, I was in the same boat as you. I pretty much sold everything I ever owned and decided to come to Hawaii, and everyone thought I was nuts.
Yeah.
It's not typical. And, I'm like you. I don't want to be on my deathbed thinking, what if I could have done this and that? And, when a lot of people say someday never comes. That's why it's so important to take action now. So, I can't wait to see your journey to London. It's going to be phenomenal. I mean, on our past show, there was one lady who decided to backpack through Africa alone. So,
wow.
I know you'll be fine. I know when I heard that, I was like, I don't even think I have the balls to do that yet. So, it's just all about taking the action and just being in the moment. So thanks for sharing that. And, what's your favorite self-confidence quote?
My favorite quote is, do good work. And I think that's very important, especially with an entrepreneur. I've had my business for 10 years, and reputation is really in a way, it's a lot like currency. Obviously we want to get paid for our work, but more importantly, we want to be able to do good work so our clients can come back time after time and feel that we're reliable and we're professional and we're able to do what we said we're going to deliver to do. And that's very important for me.
I love that. And it's so true, right? It's kind of like having a Goodwill bank account, right? You got to fill that up just as much as your financial bank account.
Yeah, and the other part of it too is that's pretty much my personal model. The other one is make yourself useful. And for me, it's really important to continuously do good work. And that's also kind of why I'm going to art school for 6 months next year, because I just feel like creatively, I always had to fuel it's kind of like a fire. You always have to keep adding to it and adding more, I don't know, like tricks up your sleeve, so to speak, up your sleeve. Because as a creative professional, I think if you just kind of are in the same space, it does get stagnant and it does get boring after a while. And you can get burned out. You can lose that passion you have for your work. So I think that's really important for me at least, is to really focus on continually to be able to produce good work for my clients.
Awesome. I love it. I mean, I think it makes total sense. Sometimes you just got to do crazy things to get the results that you want. So thanks for sharing that. And, what would be your definition of self-confidence?
I think this can sound very trite, but I think it really comes down to listening to your internal voice and your core values. I'm a Sagittarius, and I'm not, I read my horoscope and stuff, but it's not how I govern my life, basically. But with Sagittarius as an archer, right? So it's a lot how I approach things. I have to be able to see a goal, or at least have a vision of it. And then I know what to strive for. And I think it's really important that to have a very strong set of core values, or at least get a sense of who you are as a person and as a professional. Because when you do work that aligns with your core values, you're going to feel really good about the work that you're doing in the world. And so my one tip for that is just to keep listening and finding your internal compass that will help you feel more confident and at ease.
I like that. It always starts with, our inner voice telling us what to do, because we have to learn how to trust ourselves too, right? Especially being, Asian culture, we're always told what to do, and that really can hurt us as a person, because then, the consequences, we don't trust ourselves. Like the decisions that we make, we always have to second guess, and
right.
It doesn't serve us, because then we don't do anything in our lives. We just end up always following the crowd, always being told what to do.
Yeah, and I think, I grew up in Asia, so a lot of things, like education and even the path of your life, it really was kind of like a formula. You're just kind of moving through the motions. I think now the ideas have changed. I think the generational values, like if you look at millennials, for example, that really have stirred up kind of like, in a way, a global phenomenon. I think people are having different kind of ideas about work. So I definitely see that. I think when I become an adult, it's kind of funny when I say that. I guess, in our adult lives, for me, it's kind of really recalibrating the both. Like the way I was brought up, pretty just, be in a box, versus living in America, where people really, the education system here, and also I think the society really encourage you to be creative and to be out of the box and to really pursue what you want in life. So I think a main part of my adult life is kind of recalibrating the both and kind of find the happy medium between the two.
I love that. Well, thanks for sharing that. And what was your life like before your discovery of self-confidence?
I think I was very unsure about my directions with my work and my life. And this happened around my late 20s. And I used to get really freaked out and then worry about doing certain things at work. I bent over backward for clients and stuff, and I always thought that I was not good enough. Even up until the last few years, I still have kind of that nagging feelings. But even after talking to people who are really big in the design and styling world, and I realized that still happens, no matter what status you are at. Even if you are like a very famous stylist or whatever, it's natural. Everybody goes through that kind of self-questioning, if I'm good enough, the self-doubt kind of phase. And I used to really second-guess myself all the time in my decisions. And it was actually really painful. My sister works with me, and she worked with me before too. And I think that was kind of the stress point in our working relationship as well, was that I really lack of that kind of self-awareness, and I just really wasn't sure of myself. And it is a terrible feeling. So I really encourage women, or actually anyone who are going through that, to just play and then explore what interests you. Especially, I think a lot of, in my 20s, I think I really struggled with, oh my God, what am I going to do with my life? When I was growing up, I was really get the sense of that if you get a job as an adult after school, you pretty much have that job until you died. And that's not how it is nowadays. I think I remember reading some statistics saying that most people change jobs every 18 months. That's the average right now, 18 months. That's a year and a half. That's not a long time. And so when I started my business too, I was really struggling. I was just kind of oh my God, really want to make sure that my company is growing and all that stuff. And I really wasn't getting the true sense of what success meant for me. I really thought about success meant, a certain dollar amount. If we hit 6-figure, then I'm successful. And I spent a lot of time chasing that. And then I realized, well, actually, that doesn't really solve any issue. Because just because you think, if you don't really know what really made you happy, for you to chase some other thing, it's actually a distraction. And when you get it, you still feel this emptiness inside. So I really encourage, if any of you who are listening who are struggling with it, really to go out there and explore. If you know you're a creative, but you feel like in your current role you might not be the best what you're doing, go take some classes, like take other classes in other discipline. You might get some inspiration, or do things that truly make you feel passionate about. Give back to other people, be of service to others. Those kind of activities will really help you to reignite your passion and your purpose. So that's my one advice for people who are struggling with that.
Well, thanks for sharing that. And so what was that realization when you know that, I don't care what people think of me, I'm just going to go ahead and do what I want. I'm going to go out there and search for the things that I want to do and be able to be happy with my own life.
I think for me, the aha moment was that this is what I think about it. I think a lot of people are not confident in themselves because they're afraid to fail. And that is at least how I felt about me and about my business. For a very long time, I really identified my self-identity with my business. So if my business was a failure, I feel like I was a failure. And that was very painful, like we talked about in the last question, because that when you're tying your identity to that one thing, and then when it fails, you feel like you're not worth anything. Even though there might be a lot of still like very positive attributes about your life that people want. For example, in my 20s, I just feel like I really sucked at making money and I feel a total failure about it. But there are things in my life that people are envious about. Like, for example, like I was able to do a yoga teacher training. I was able to teach yoga in my early 20s. And I remember I was talking to one of my ex-boyfriends and he was just like, do you know how many girls in the city right now would wish that they're a yoga teacher that are teaching? And I was like, oh, okay, interesting. And then I think throughout my professional life too, and now one of the main things, I think the turning point for me was that I took a trip to London in my early 30s and just kind of had this realization where, because I wasn't vacationing for a very long time. I didn't go anywhere, I think, for 5 or 6 years. And I love traveling. But I had been traveling for work, but I never really take time for myself for a very long time. So when I went on that trip, I came to a realization that a lot of expectation I had for myself when I was in my 20s, that was all kind of not happening. And so it really made me reevaluate what I needed to do. And it was very serendipitous. I ended up deciding to go back to school to learn about visual merchandising. I didn't have to, but I decided to do it because I also feel like creatively I have hit a plateau. And that really shifted a lot of my thinking about my business, about how I approach it and what I have to do. Because I had very in the box idea of how a business is supposed to be run. But when I went to take more classes, I realized, oh, actually, I can run my business in this other way as well. And there are a lot of people doing this other thing, and it works very well. And so I think, coming back to the question, I think all of us need to ask ourselves, like, what is the worst case scenario that can happen? And when and then just rationalize from there. And once you get over that, it really makes everything more manageable. And then also getting over feeling and see the positive part about feeling actually really help as well. I'm a very optimistic person. I'm always glass half full. And after going through all these I feel like very severe at times, like failures in my business really made me feel tougher. Like I was definitely more thick-skinned. I was less and less afraid of failing. And I embrace failing because that's the only way I knew that like I can readjust my course and then move toward a better direction. And that's why now I really actually embrace failing, because I really take the lessons I've learned from my failures and then I can move on from there.
Awesome. Well, that was great, tips that you shared. And, so what's your life like now after those discoveries?
I feel very in the zone, so to speak. I listen to Lewis Howes, who hosts the podcast, The School of Greatness. And he interviews all these very fantastic and just very fascinating entrepreneurs or lifestyle professionals or a lot of fitness people as well, because Lewis is an athlete. So a lot of common thread of all these guests, because Lewis always asks, like, what is your definition of greatness? And a lot of them will always tell you to be in sync with your core values, because when you're operating from that space of, like, you know, your knowledge and your core values, you're able to be of service of other people. It gives your work meaning, and that's when you're really in the zone. And that's where I feel like I'm heading toward right now, where I have a very clear identity and a very clear direction in terms of where I need to pivot my business to and what I will be doing next year, and how that plays into what I plan for myself, my life, and my work in the long run.
Awesome. Well, I'm really happy for you and excited for you, especially next year taking a trip to London to, take art classes. That's going to be so exciting. And, what advice would you give to a woman who's listening to your episode right now in her journey of self-confidence?
I would say keep trying and just exploring. I mean, I know it sounds very trite, but I'm a big, I think, education junkie, and I really enjoy taking classes. I've taken classes that have nothing to do with my work at all, and a lot of times they do have some sort of relationship to my work as well. But throughout these activities, when you're trying to, like, explore yourself, you will find things that make you feel passionate. Like, I took a calligraphy class because I thought it was very fascinating. But then I learned that I actually don't like calligraphy. It's kind of like dating in a way. A lot of my friends, I'm single, so a lot of my examples are about dating and work. But a lot of my friends are like, well, you need to date like a few different guys so you would know what you like and what you don't like. Right? And it's the same thing with finding your purpose. Try a few different things, and don't be afraid of what other people may or may not say, because ultimately you are living your life. They're not. And they don't know how you feel about yourself. I always feel that relationship with yourself is a bit like wearing a pair of shoes. Only you know how it feels on the inside, right? The person next to you is not going to know if your feet are actually killing you, even though you're in this beautiful Jimmy Choo heels, right? Same thing. Or people may see that you're wearing a pair of Birkenstock, but it's very comfortable for you. Or Crocs, because Birkenstock is really in right now, so I feel like that's a bad example. So it's really how you feel about your life. That's really the most important part.
I love that tip, and thanks for sharing that. I always believe in trying different things to do know, like, if you love it or if you hate it, right?
Yeah.
Once you try it, then you know the answer. So, Cindy, if our listeners wanted to get to know a little bit more about you and the work you do, or just you as a person, is there any websites or social media profiles that we can connect with?
Sure. You can find me for social medias, you can find me under Cindy Lin, CINDYLIN SF, as in San Francisco. That handle is pretty much for all my social media, like Instagram, Pinterest, Facebook, Twitter, and LinkedIn as well. For my work website, you go to staged4more.com, STAGED4MORE.com. We also just came out with a do-it-yourself home staging course, and that website is stageyourhouselikeapro.com. And I just want to add to that last question about the advice. I also encourage you to really push yourself outside of comfort zone, because you would pleasantly surprise yourself. I know it's very scary, but I've done it over and over again. And once you know where your edge are and you start exploring that, it's going to bring you progress. Let's just say that.
I totally agree. I mean, just getting out there and just doing the things that you never thought was possible. And it all comes with just being out of that comfort zone. So thanks for sharing that. And to our listeners, if you want to connect with Cindy, just head on over to the taoofselfconfidence.com and search for Cindy's name. Her show notes will pop up along with everything else we talked about. And I really want to thank Cindy for taking the time to sharing her story and tips with us on self-confidence. So thank you so much, Cindy.
Thanks again. I appreciate it.
No problem. And be on the lookout for another new episode of another amazing woman's journey to self-confidence. And I'll talk to you later. Bye for now. Thank you for joining us at the Tao of Self-Confidence. Head over to the taoofselfconfidence.com for full recaps of every show, our amazing blog articles and resources, and just plain fun. Your inner journey to self-confidence awaits, so start today.